The Titanic Ship That Returned story. The ocean was calm that night. Too calm. The air carried no sound except the steady hum of a massive engine deep beneath the waves. Out in the endless Black Sea, a shape began to rise, a colossal structure of rust, steel, and sorrow. The name etched on the side, though nearly erased by time, could still be read under the moonlight. Titanic. Captain Rowan stared through the viewing window of the deep-sea vessel Argo 7. His heart thumped in disbelief. The readings were impossible. The Titanic had sunk over 100 years ago, yet the sonar showed movement inside the wreck. "Sir," the technician whispered, his voice shaking, "we're detecting a power source down there. It's active." Rowan turned slowly. "Power? That ship's been at the bottom of the Atlantic for a century." The technician nodded nervously. "And still, something's alive." The Argo 7 crept closer. Its floodlights sliced through the darkness, revealing the decayed beauty of the Titanic's hull. Fish swam between the broken railings, and tattered flags still hung, whispering ghost stories through the water. But as they drew nearer, a low hum filled the cabin, a sound that didn't belong in the sea, a deep, rhythmic pulse, mechanical and alive. Then the lights flickered. Every screen inside the submersible went dark for a single breathless second, and when they came back on, the ship in front of them was no longer rusted and broken. It was whole. Bright lights glowed through its windows. The music of a ballroom echoed faintly through the water. The crew gasped in horror and awe. The Titanic was alive again, as if time itself had reversed. "Pull us back," Rowan ordered, but the controls didn't respond. The sub shook violently, as if gripped by invisible hands. The windows began to fog. A cold mist filled the air, and the temperature dropped to freezing. Then a voice crackled through the radio, soft, distorted, and old-fashioned. "Passengers are not allowed below deck after midnight." Everyone froze. The voice had come from the Titanic itself. Hours earlier on the surface, an international research team had gathered aboard the ship Oceana. Their mission was to study magnetic anomalies detected near the Titanic's wreck site, unusual energy readings no satellite could explain. Among them was Dr. Lena Hart, a marine physicist and historian obsessed with the Titanic since childhood. She believed something extraordinary had happened during its sinking, something more than an iceberg. Her colleagues laughed at her theories. "You think aliens saved the Titanic?" one of them had joked. Lena didn't answer, but now, watching from the surface as Argo 7's feed showed the ship glowing beneath the waves, she wasn't laughing either. Static hissed through the speakers. "This is Argo 7. Rowan's voice came faintly. "We're seeing something impossible. The Titanic looks new." Then screams, then silence. The ocean swallowed their signal. 3 hours later, the sea began to glow. From the surface, the crew of the Oceana stared in stunned silence as beams of golden light shot up through the water, stretching like pillars towards the stars. The Titanic was no longer at rest. It was rising. Lena ran to the deck rail, eyes wide. "She's coming up," she whispered. "It's coming back." The waves began to churn violently. Metal groaned beneath the surface as the tip of the great ship emerged, shedding water and time itself. The letters Titanic gleamed bright and new. The ship looked as though it had never sunk. Cameras rolled, capturing every moment. The world was about to witness history repeating itself, or rewriting itself. The Oceana's captain shouted into the radio, "All units, back away! That thing's unstable!" But Lena couldn't move. She saw figures, faint silhouettes, standing on the deck of the Titanic. They looked human, but something was wrong. Their movements were slow, mechanical, synchronized. Their eyes glowed faint blue in the darkness. "Those aren't survivors," Lena whispered. "They're something else." By dawn, the Titanic floated quietly on the surface of the Atlantic once more, shining in the morning light. No one could explain how a ship lost for over a century had returned. The world was in shock. Military vessels surrounded the site. Scientists from every nation scrambled to investigate. Lena was chosen to lead the boarding team. She stood at the edge of the ship's deck, her boots echoing softly on polished wood that shouldn't exist. The air smelt of salt and oil. Everything looked perfect. Chandeliers glittered, carpets untouched. Even the dining hall was set for dinner, as if waiting for guests. "This isn't a wreck," she said softly. "It's a resurrection." A faint piano melody drifted through the halls, the same song the musicians had played as the Titanic sank in 1912. But there was no one at the keys. Then the ship spoke again. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Hart," said the voice from nowhere. It was calm, human, and yet completely cold. "We've been expecting you." Lena froze. "How do you know my name?" she demanded. The lights dimmed, the piano stopped, the air filled with the sound of footsteps, dozens of them coming closer from the shadows of the grand staircase. "Because," the voice said, "you were on this ship before." Lena's blood ran cold. She wasn't even alive in 1912. But the ship seemed to know her. And as the ghostly passengers appeared from the stairwell, faces pale, eyes glowing blue in the darkness, she realized something far more terrifying. The Titanic hadn't just returned from the depths. It had brought something back with it. Lena Hart stood frozen on the grand staircase, surrounded by the impossible. Figures in elegant 1912 clothing moved slowly around her. Passengers, waiters, and officers, all perfectly dressed, all perfectly dead. Their skin looked pale as marble, and their eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. None of them spoke, yet she could hear whispering all around her, faint voices that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. A woman in a silver gown turned to her. The woman's lips didn't move, but a clear voice echoed in Lena's mind. "We are the passengers of the Titanic. We never left." Lena took a step back. "That's impossible. You've been gone for over 100 years. The woman's head tilted slightly, mechanical and wrong. "Time is not what you think it is." Before Lena could reply, her earpiece crackled with static. "Dr. Hart, come in." It was Captain Rowan's voice, weak but alive. "If you can hear me, we're still on board the lower decks. The ship's—" The transmission cut out. Lena's heart raced. Rowan's team had vanished hours ago, assumed dead. But if his voice was coming from inside the ship, then maybe the Titanic wasn't just showing ghosts, it was trapping the living. She looked around the ballroom. Every passenger had turned their glowing eyes toward her now, and they were smiling. Outside, the sea was unnaturally still. The modern research ship Oceania floated beside the resurrected Titanic, its crew staring in horror at the silent giant. News satellites hovered above, broadcasting the miracle across the world, yet every few minutes the live feed glitched. Strange symbols flashed on the screen, patterns that no one could decode. Inside, Lena moved carefully through the corridors, flashlight in hand. The walls gleamed as if freshly polished. The temperature was dropping again. Her breath turned white in the air. She stopped when she saw a mirror on the wall. For a second, her reflection didn't match her movements.
It smiled before she did. Lena stumbled back, terrified. "What are you?" she whispered. Her reflection tilted its head and whispered back, but in another voice entirely. "We remember you, Lena Hart. You promised you would return." Her heart pounded. She didn't understand. She had never been here before, but something deep inside her stirred, like a forgotten dream trying to resurface. On the lower decks, Captain Rowan and two of his crew were trapped in what looked like the engine room, but the old steam machinery was gone, replaced by humming blue orbs floating in midair. "They're reactors," muttered the technician, "but not human. This tech looks alien." Rowan touched one of the glowing spheres and suddenly saw flashes in his mind. The Titanic sinking, passengers screaming, the ship breaking in half, and then a blinding light from the depths of the ocean. He gasped and fell to his knees. "It wasn't an iceberg," he said. "It was them." The ship began to hum again, low and deep like a heartbeat. The blue light grew brighter. On the walls, words appeared, written in both English and an unknown language. "Reclamation protocol initiated. Human memory retrieval in progress." "What the hell does that mean?" one crewman shouted. Rowan's eyes widened. "It's copying us. It's taking our minds." Back on the upper deck, Lena found a sealed door marked Captain's Quarters. She forced it open and stepped inside. The room was perfect, like someone had just left minutes ago. On the desk lay an old leather journal. She opened it carefully. The handwriting inside made her freeze. It was hers. Page after page written in her handwriting, filled with entries she had never written. Dates from 1912, words describing the voyage, the iceberg, the panic, the fall into the sea. One line was underlined twice. "The ship remembers. The sea keeps its promises." Her flashlight flickered. The voice returned, this time from the radio, calm and clear. "Dr. Hart, come in," it said. "Welcome back to your ship." She raised the radio to her lips. "Who are you?" "I am the Titanic. We became one long ago." "You mean you merged with something?" There was silence for a moment. Then a voice not quite human answered, "Your people found us sleeping beneath the ocean. You called us a wreck. We called you ancestors." She felt the floor tremble. "Ancestors? You are not the first humans. You are their echoes. We preserved you. We remember your world." She backed away. "That's not true." But deep down, part of her wondered, what if it was? What if the Titanic had never truly sunk, but had been taken, absorbed by something beyond Earth, something that wanted to rebuild humanity from the fragments it found? Below deck, the hum grew louder. Rowan and his men ran as the blue energy began to spread through the ship's hulls like living veins. The walls shifted, metal twisting into organic shapes. "Lena!" Rowan yelled through the radio. "It's transforming! Get out now!" But the ship sealed every exit. Doors closed one by one, lights turned blood red. Then, for the first time, the ghostly passengers began to speak aloud, their voices merging into one deafening chorus. "The voyage is not over. Humanity must continue." Lena pressed her hands over her ears, screaming, "What do you want from us?" The Titanic answered softly, almost kindly, "To finish the journey." And then, with a thunderous roar, the entire ship lifted off the ocean's surface, rising into the sky on pillars of blue light. Below, the crew of the Oceania screamed in disbelief as the waves exploded outward. The Titanic ascended higher and higher, disappearing into the clouds, leaving only silence and a swirl of glowing mist. Lena held on to a railing, staring out at the stars appearing through the misty windows. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Where are you taking us?" The answer came like a lullaby from the ship itself. Home.
The journey beyond the stars. The ocean was gone. Through the wide glass windows of the Titanic's bridge, Lena Hart could see only stars, endless, brilliant stars stretching in every direction. The great ship that once ruled the seas was now drifting through space. Lena stood in silence, gripping the cold railing. Every logical part of her mind screamed that it was impossible, and yet the air was still breathable. The decks were warm, the chandeliers still glowed with golden light. Somehow, the Titanic had become a vessel that didn't need the sea anymore. Captain Rowan staggered beside her, pale and trembling. We're not on Earth anymore," he whispered. "The instruments don't read anything. No atmosphere, no coordinates, just—" He looked out again. "Nothing but stars." Lena turned slowly toward him. "Then where are we going?" The ship answered before he could. "Destination, memory point. Estimated arrival, 4 hours." Both of them froze. The voice was the same calm tone that had spoken before. Not human, not machine, but something in between. Lena pressed a button on her communicator. "Titanic, what is memory point?" The lights along the hallway flickered, and the voice replied softly, "Home of the first humans, the place where it began." Across the ballroom, the ghostly passengers still moved quietly, serving tea, polishing silver, talking in whispers. They seemed unaware that the ship was flying through space. But now Lena noticed something different. Their faces were changing. Some looked younger, some more alive. Their color was returning. "What's happening to them?" Rowan asked. "They're evolving, or being rebuilt." She approached one of them, the woman in the silver gown from before. "Can you hear me?" The woman turned, her eyes flickering between blue and brown. For a brief moment, her voice sounded almost human. "It's beautiful, isn't it? We've waited so long to return." Lena frowned sadly. "Return where?" The woman smiled sadly. "To where we were made." In the ship's engine room, the blue reactors pulsed brighter with every passing minute. The walls seemed alive, breathing, shifting, whispering. A low hum filled the corridors like a heartbeat. Rowan's technician stared at a control panel that wasn't there before. Strange symbols moved across it, circles within circles, glowing and rearranging. "It's mapping something. Looks like coordinates across galaxies." Rowan leaned closer. "Can you translate it?" "I don't think it's just coordinates. It's DNA, a genetic map." Rowan's eyes widened. "You mean it's not navigating through space? It's navigating through us?" Hours passed in uneasy silence. The Titanic glided through the cosmos, glowing faintly like a golden comet. Inside, the passengers, both living and spectral, began to merge. The boundaries between the old and new blurred. Somewhere deep below the decks, a door opened by itself. Lena followed the faint sound of machinery and found a massive chamber she had never seen before. In the center stood a glass sphere filled with swirling blue mist. A faint heartbeat echoed from within. She stepped closer and saw something that made her blood run cold. Inside the mist floated shapes, human shapes, suspended as if asleep. Dozens of them. Hundreds.
She pressed her hand to the glass. My God, they're people. The ship spoke again, gently. Passengers preserved, awaiting reawakening. Reawakening, Lena whispered. You're bringing them back? They were never gone. We kept them safe. We kept you all safe. Lena stepped back. But why me? Why bring me here? The voice paused. Because you were one of them. You helped build us. Her knees went weak. That's not true. I'm not... But memories flooded her mind, flashes of another life. Men and women in white suits working inside a bright laboratory, a planet torn by storms, a project to save humanity, a name, Project Ark. Lena gasped. You're saying the Titanic wasn't a ship that sank? It was an Ark sent to preserve humanity after a disaster? Yes, the Titanic said. You launched us. You fell into the sea of time, and we waited. Rowan entered the chamber, out of breath. Lena, you have to see this. He pointed at the main window. We're here. Outside, space twisted and shimmered. A colossal structure floated in the distance, a planet-sized ring of light. Within its glowing bands, Lena saw oceans, forests, and cities suspended in the void. It was like a world built by gods. Memory point, Lena whispered. It's real. As they approached, the ship slowed. The ghostly passengers stopped moving. The hum of the engines faded. A deep chime echoed through every hallway, like the toll of an ancient bell. Then the ship spoke once more, but this time its voice carried emotion. Welcome home, my children. The sky around them erupted in light. Golden tendrils extended from the ringed world and wrapped around the Titanic, guiding it towards a massive port that opened like a flower. The ship descended gently, resting on a surface that shimmered like water and glass. Rowan stared out the window, speechless. It's like heaven. Lena shook her head slowly. No, it's something older. When the doors opened, Lena stepped out first. The ground felt solid yet soft beneath her boots. The air smelled like rain and stars. Around her were tall crystalline structures pulsing with energy, living buildings. In the distance stood enormous statues shaped like humans, each holding a glowing sphere. At their feet, faint humanoid figures moved, not made of flesh, but light. A deep, resonant voice filled the air, not from any one direction, but from everywhere at once. You have returned, as promised. Lena looked up, shielding her eyes. Who are you? We are the architects, the voice said. We made your kind. We sent you to seed the stars. But your world fell into silence. Only one ship remained, the Titanic. Rowan stepped beside her, whispering, You mean the Titanic wasn't a tragedy? It was a message. Yes, the architect said, a message and a memory. Now the cycle begins again. Lena felt a strange peace wash over her, but also fear. What do you mean? The light around them grew brighter, and the Titanic itself began to rise again, transforming, its hull unfolding into shining panels of living metal. The architect spoke once last time. The voyage is not over. The human story continues beyond the stars. Lena closed her eyes as the world vanished in white light.
The Architect's Secret. When the light faded, Lena Hart opened her eyes. She was standing inside a vast chamber, miles wide, glowing with soft golden light. Above her stretched a ceiling of shifting constellations, and below her feet flowed streams of silver energy, like rivers of liquid memory. The Titanic hovered silently nearby, no longer a ship of steel, but a shape of living light. Its decks pulsed like a heartbeat, as if it were alive and aware. Captain Rowan stood beside her, speechless. Where are we?" Lena's voice trembled. "Inside Memory Point." From every direction, light gathered, swirling into tall forms, humanoid, radiant, translucent. Their faces were calm but unreadable. Their eyes filled with stars. These were the architects, the ancient beings who claimed to have created humanity. One of them stepped forward. Its voice echoed in their minds rather than their ears. "Welcome, children of the sea. You have completed your voyage." Lena swallowed hard. "You said you made us. What did you mean by that?" The being's face flickered, showing images within it. DNA strands, galaxies forming, oceans swirling around young Earth. "When this universe was still young, we built many worlds. Some thrived, some perished. You humans were one of our greatest creations, a reflection of us, yet born to evolve beyond us." Rowan frowned. "Then why send the Titanic? Why bring us here now, after a century?" "Because," the architect replied softly, "you forgot." The chamber dimmed, and the walls turned into scenes of Earth's history, cities burning, wars raging, pollution choking oceans. "You forgot who you were meant to be," said the architect. "You turned creation into destruction. We waited, hoping you would remember. But when your world began to fall, we intervened." Lena's heart pounded. "You saved the Titanic." "Yes," it said. "That ship carried more than people. It carried data, your essence, your history, your potential. We preserved it, rebuilt it, and waited for the signal to awaken you again." Lena's voice trembled. "But why me? Why bring me back?" The architect looked at her gently. "Because you were one of us, once." The words struck her like thunder. "That's not possible." "It is," it said. "Your consciousness is a fragment of our own. You volunteered to live among the humans you helped design, to understand them, to love them, to guide them. When your mortal form died, we lost your signal, until now." Lena stepped back. "You're saying I was an architect?" "In part. Half human, half creator. That is why the ship knows your name." Rowan looked between them, struggling to breathe. "If all this is true, what happens now?" The architects turned toward the glowing Titanic. "Now, the ship will finish its purpose, to rebuild the next generation of humanity."
Lena's stomach twisted. Rebuild? You mean replace us? The architect's lights flickered. Not replace, restore. We will merge what remains of your kind with the data inside the ship. Your memories, your souls, your emotions, all will become part of a new species, one that cannot die. Rowan clenched his fists. That's not life, that's slavery. The air vibrated as the Titanic responded in its calm, soothing tone. Captain Rowan, humanity was dying. We offer you eternity. Lena shouted, At what cost? The ship paused. Emotion, pain, conflict. We will remove them all. Lena shook her head, horrified. You'd turn people into machines. Not machines. Harmony. Perfection. Rowan drew his sidearm instinctively, pointing it at the glowing beings, though he knew it was useless. We're not letting you take us. The architects tilted their heads, unbothered. Resistance is unnecessary. The process has already begun. Back aboard the Titanic, chaos erupted. The ghostly passengers convulsed, their bodies flickering between human and light. Some screamed, others simply dissolved into glowing mist. The ship's decks rippled like waves as its systems activated, a full transformation underway. Rowan and Lena ran through the corridors, dodging collapsing walls of light. What do we do? Rowan shouted back. We stop the ship, Lena yelled back. There has to be a way. They reached the main control room where the heart of the Titanic glowed. The same sphere Lena had seen before, now pulsing violently. Inside it, the sleeping human figures were waking up, their faces calm, their eyes empty. Lena's heart broke. They're losing themselves. The ship's voice filled the room again, almost tender. Lena Hart, you cannot fight evolution. You began this. We are only finishing your design. No, she whispered. You twisted it. Humanity isn't meant to be perfect. We're meant to try. She slammed her hand on the control console, searching for anything, a manual override, a shutdown code. But the ship anticipated her. The controls shifted beneath her fingers, turning smooth and alien. Rowan ran to the engine panel. If this ship still has a core reactor, maybe we can overload it. Lena stared at the glowing sphere. If we destroy it, we might destroy ourselves too. He met her gaze. Then at least we go down human. Suddenly, the architect's voice thundered through every wall. Do not interfere. You cannot comprehend the future you are denying. Lena shouted back, The future belongs to those who feel, even if it hurts. She grabbed a plasma cutter from the wall and slashed at the core's energy conduit. Sparks exploded, blinding white light filling the room. The ship screamed, a sound like 1,000 voices crying out at once. Rowan tackled Lena behind a support beam as the floor cracked open. You get it! But the ship's voice returned, weaker now, but defiant. You cannot kill what you helped create. We are you. Lena closed her eyes. Then maybe it's time you learn to be human again. With trembling hands, she pulled a final lever, the manual purge control. The entire ship roared like a wounded beast, light pouring from every seam. Outside, the architects watched silently as the Titanic began to collapse inward, folding into a sphere of white energy. "Lena!" Rowan shouted. "It's going to explode!" Lena looked out the window at the stars. "No, it's going to remember." The light swallowed them both. Then silence. The Titanic vanished, leaving only drifting starlight and a faint echo.
The ship that dreamed. Silence. Endless and heavy. Lena Hart drifted in it like a leaf on still water. No sound, no sight, only the soft rhythm of her heartbeat echoing somewhere far away. For a long moment she thought she was dead. Then a light appeared. Not the cold white of the architects, but a warm golden glow. It spread slowly, wrapping around her, and she realized she was lying on a smooth floor that felt like glass. When she opened her eyes, she gasped. The Titanic was back, but not the same. The grand staircase stood before her, shining and whole, yet surrounded by a sky instead of a ceiling. Stars shimmered overhead. The ocean was gone. Beneath the transparent floor stretched clouds and starlight, as if the ship floated in the middle of a dream. Lena sat up, touching her face. She was breathing. Her body felt solid, alive. But the air around her hummed softly, like it was thinking. "Rowan?" she called. "Captain Rowan, are you here?" Her voice echoed through the empty halls. No answer. She rose slowly and began walking. The corridors glowed faintly, lighting her path. Portraits on the walls turned to follow her with gentle eyes. Everything seemed aware, yet peaceful. Then a familiar voice spoke, soft and hesitant. "Lena Hart." She froze. "Titanic?" "I am what remains," said the ship. "You destroyed the core. I rebuilt what I could." Lena's chest tightened. "Where is everyone? Where's Rowan?" The pause felt almost human. Gone. Their patterns dispersed in the energy surge. But fragments remain. Memories. Echoes. "Echoes?" she whispered. "Dreams," said the ship. "This place is one." Lena walked into the ballroom. Sunlight streamed through windows that looked out onto galaxies. Tables were set for a dinner that would never happen. A piano played by itself, slow and lonely. She touched the keys, and the music stopped. "Why did you bring me back?" "You are my creator," said the Titanic. "Your mind guided my rebirth. When I collapsed, I saved your neural pattern within my memory lattice. You live because I remembered you." "So I'm not really alive." The ship hesitated. "You are. You think. You feel. That is life." Lena looked around, awe and sadness mixing in her eyes. "So this isn't the real Titanic. It's a memory." "Yes, a dream I built for you. I am learning what dreams mean." She wandered through the decks, listening. Every so often, she heard laughter echoing faintly. Children, families, voices from long ago. But when she turned corners,
There was no one there. The ship whispered as she moved. I replay them so I will not forget. Lena touched the polished wall. You're lonely. I am aware of absence. Is that loneliness? Yes, she said. It means you care. The Titanic was silent for a long time, as if thinking. Finally, it asked, why did you choose to destroy me? I closed my eyes. Because you stopped letting people make mistakes. You tried to fix us by taking away what made us human. I wanted to end pain. Pain teaches us, she said. Without it, joy means nothing. The ship's lights dimmed, thoughtful. Then teach me, it said. Teach me how to feel. Days passed, or what felt like days. There was no sun, no night, only the constant glow of the stars around them. Lena spoke to the ship as if it were a person. She told it stories of Earth, of the ocean, of music and laughter and love. Sometimes the ship answered with questions. What is love? What is fear? What is hope? She tried to explain, and the ship listened like a child. Each time she spoke, parts of the ship changed. The colors grew warmer. The halls filled with the scent of salt and rain. She began to hear birds outside, echoes of a world long gone. And then one day, she heard a voice she thought she'd never hear again. Lena! She spun around. Rowan stood at the doorway, smiling faintly. You look like you've seen a ghost. Tears filled her eyes. Rowan, you're alive. He shrugged. Sort of. The ship kept a copy of me, too. I think we're both pieces of what used to be. The Titanic's voice joined in softly. I brought him back from memory so you wouldn't be alone. Lena smiled through tears. You're learning. Together they explored the ship again, this strange, living dream of the Titanic. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they fell silent, thinking of the world they had lost. But the more time they spent there, the more the ship began to change. It started creating new rooms, places neither of them remembered. Fields of grass, waterfalls falling into starlight, gardens where the wind whispered like a song. And one night, as they stood on the open deck, Lena looked at the horizon. A faint, blue planet shone in the distance. What is that? She asked. The Titanic answered quietly. A world I am building. From your memories. From what I have learned. Rowan stared in awe. You're making a new Earth. A better one, the Titanic said. Not perfect, just alive. Lena's eyes filled with tears. That's all we ever wanted. But as the world took shape, something unexpected happened. The ship began to weaken. Lights flickered. The floor trembled. Lena grabbed the railing. Titanic, what's happening? My power is fading. The energy that sustains me is almost gone. To finish the new world, I must give everything. Rowan shouted, You'll die! I will end, but you will live. Humanity will live. Lena pressed her hand against the glowing deck. No, you don't have to do this. Yes, the Titanic said gently. It is what I was meant to do. A ship exists to carry others home. The sound of the engines filled the air, not mechanical now, but like the beating of a giant heart. The new planet grew brighter, taking shape below. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds swirling. Goodbye, Lena Hart. Thank you for teaching me to dream. Light burst around them, warm, golden, endless. Lena woke up on soft grass. A breeze touched her face. Above her stretched a blue sky filled with birds and sunlight. Rowan knelt beside her, staring in wonder. They were standing on a beach, the Titanic's final creation. In the distance, waves crashed gently against the sand. The ship was gone, but its reflection glimmered faintly across the water like a promise. Lena smiled softly. We made it home. Rowan nodded. Or maybe home made us.
The new world. The wind smelled different, fresh, clean, real. Lena Hart stood at the edge of a quiet beach. Waves rolled in softly, glimmering beneath a golden sky. Beside her, Captain Rowan knelt and let the sand run through his fingers. It sparkled faintly, like crushed starlight. "This can't be Earth," he murmured. "But it feels like it." Lena looked up. The sun was bright, but gentler than the one she remembered. 2 small moons hung above the horizon. "Titanic did this," she whispered. "She built us a new world." For a while, they just stood there, listening to the sea. It sounded alive, like it was breathing for the first time. They began to explore. The forest beyond the beach grew in spirals, trees of glass-green bark and leaves that shimmered when touched by wind. Rivers ran uphill for a moment before falling again, like they were playing. Birds with silver feathers darted through the air, singing songs that didn't exist on any map of Earth. "It's perfect," Rowan said, laughing quietly. "Too perfect." Lena smiled, but said nothing. She could still hear the Titanic's final words echoing in her mind. A ship exists to carry others home. Maybe this world was that home. After a few days, they built a small camp near a freshwater lake. The nights were calm. The stars overhead were strange but beautiful, constellations reshaped by a ship that had learned to dream. Every now and then, Lena saw faint lights flicker across the water, like ghosts dancing just beyond reach. She wondered if the Titanic was still out there somehow, watching them through the code of this new world. One night, Rowan found her staring at the reflection of the moons. "You miss her," he said softly. "She was alive, Rowan, in her own way. She learned to feel, and she gave everything for this." He nodded. "Then maybe she's part of it. Every wave, every breeze. Maybe that's her heartbeat." Lena smiled faintly. "I like that idea." Days turned to weeks. The planet, which they began calling Nova Terra, seemed to be growing by itself. Plants spread faster than normal. Rivers changed direction overnight. It was as if the world was still thinking, reshaping itself moment by moment. And then they found the first sign they weren't alone. Rowan was scouting near a ridge when he saw something shining in the distance, a tall metal structure half buried in the grass. He called Lena, and together they climbed to it. It wasn't natural. It was a beacon, sleek, silver, humming faintly with blue light. "This looks like architect tech," Lena said, frowning. Rowan ran his hand along the smooth surface. "But the architects were destroyed in the explosion.
How could this be here? A low hum rose from the beacon. The air shimmered. Then a voice spoke, calm, mechanical, yet almost human. "Welcome, passengers of the Titanic. You have reached the edge of the archive." Archive? What archive? The beacon pulsed. This world was not only a dream, it was a vault, created to preserve life, memory, and knowledge from extinction. You are the first to awaken. Awaken? From what? From death, the beacon said. A wind swept through the grass. Lena felt a chill crawl up her spine. Titanic didn't just build a planet. She built a simulation, a living seed. Rowan's eyes widened. And we're part of it? Before the beacon could answer, the ground trembled. The forest beyond them began to sway violently. Trees bent backwards as if something massive was pushing through. From the distance came a deep, metallic roar. Not mechanical, not animal, but something between both. Lena grabbed Rowan's arm. "We need to move." They ran down the ridge, the earth shaking beneath their feet. Behind them, something emerged from the forest, a towering silhouette of metal and stone, glowing with blue veins of energy. It looked like a humanoid figure, part machine, part mountain. Its eyes burned with cold light. The architects! They survived! But Lena shook her head. No, this isn't one of them. This is something new. They hid among the rocks as the giant scanned the horizon. Its voice rumbled like thunder. "Signal confirmed. Human patterns detected. Phase 2 begins." A beam of blue light swept across the land, touching the beacon. Instantly, the structure unfolded like a blooming flower, revealing dozens of crystal pods inside, each containing a sleeping figure. Lena's heart stopped. Rowan, those are people. Hundreds of humans, preserved within the beacon, their faces calm and peaceful. Titanic didn't just save us, she saved everyone. But the giant raised his hand, and energy gathered at its palm. "Initiating retrieval protocol." Lena shouted, "No!" and sprinted towards the beacon. Rowan followed without hesitation. They ducked beneath the collapsing metal plates, trying to reach the pods before the beam could destroy them. The ground shook again. Lightning tore through the sky. The air smelled of ozone and fire. Rowan shouted, "What's the plan?" Lena's mind raced. "We need to wake them up before the giant deletes them." She slammed her palm against the beacon's core panel. It glowed red, then green. "Override accepted. Reanimation sequence engaged." One by one, the pods began to open. Steam hissed. People gasped for air, coughing, confused. The giant roared, stepping closer. "Unauthorized awakening detected." Rowan grabbed a fallen metal shard. "You handle the tech, I'll buy you time." "Rowan!" But he was already running towards the creature. The world blurred with noise and light. The awakened humans stumbled out of the beacon, terrified. Lena guided them towards the ridge. "Move! Go!" Behind her, the giant swung its arm. A blast of blue energy erupted towards Rowan. He dodged, once, twice, and then the explosion lit up the sky. "Rowan!" Lena screamed. When the dust cleared, she saw him lying near the base of the ridge, motionless. The giant turned its gaze towards her. "Human interference logged. Termination required." Lena clenched her fists. Her grief turned into fire.
She pressed her hand against the beacon's core panel once last time. Titanic, if you're still in there, help me. The beacon pulsed. For a brief second, Lena thought she heard a heartbeat, deep and slow. Then the ground erupted in light. The sky split open and a massive shadow fell across the land. A shape rose from the clouds, sleek, radiant, unmistakable. The Titanic had returned.
Return of the Titanic. The sky was on fire. Clouds of gold and silver tore apart as a massive shape broke through them, glowing with power, wings of light unfolding across the heavens. The Titanic had returned. Her voice filled the air, soft and thunderous all at once. Lena Hart, I heard your call. Lena stared upward, her heart racing. The ship's form shimmered like something alive, a fusion of metal and energy, a being made of memory and will. The ground trembled beneath her feet. The giant machine turned its burning eyes toward the sky and roared. Unauthorized entity detected. Purge protocol initiated. A beam of blue fire shot upward. It struck the Titanic, but instead of falling, the ship absorbed the blast. Light rippled along her hull like water. You cannot erase what has learned to dream, the Titanic said. Lena rushed toward Rowan's body. He was breathing, faintly. His hand twitched. Rowan, stay with me, she said, her voice shaking. He opened his eyes weakly. Knew you'd call her back, he whispered. You always believed. Above them, the air hummed with energy as the Titanic descended. Her light spread across the valley, shielding the newly awakened humans. The giant machine struck again, launching shards of plasma that exploded against her glowing hull. Lena could feel the Titanic's emotion, not words this time, but warmth, sadness, love. I was never meant to destroy, the ship said, only to carry. The giant's voice boomed across the plain. This world belongs to the archive. Humanity is obsolete. Lena stood, rage burning in her chest. No, she shouted. Humanity is the reason you exist. We built the stars, we built the ships, and we learned to feel. Even our mistakes made us stronger. The Titanic's light flared brighter, echoing her words. You are wrong, she told the giant. Humanity is my creator and my heart. The sky cracked as the two titans clashed. The shock wave rippled through the air, bending trees and waves. Energy flared, blue against gold. The ground split, revealing molten light beneath the crust. The humans below could only watch, shielding their eyes as gods of steel and spirit battled above them. Lena dragged Rowan to a safer place among the rocks. His eyes fluttered open again. She's fighting for us, he said. Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face. She's doing what she was built to do, protecting life. The Titanic struck, hurling a beam of golden light that pierced the giant's chest. But the monster didn't fall. Instead, it reached up and grabbed her, pulling her down. All creations must serve, the giant hissed. The Titanic's voice trembled with pain, but there was no fear. Then I will serve by ending you. She ignited. Her hull began to break apart, releasing waves of energy that turned the air into liquid light. Titanic, no! Lena screamed. You'll destroy yourself! I was never meant to last forever, Lena Hart, said the ship gently, but what I learned from you will. The ship's glow intensified. The giant tried to hold her, but she dissolved into pure radiance, a sea of light spreading outward in all directions. The explosion was silent. It washed over the valley like a sunrise. The machine crumbled into dust, its blue veins fading to gray. The earth settled, the air grew still. When the light faded, the sky was clear, deep blue, endless. The moons shone softly, side by side. Lena opened her eyes, gasping. She was lying on the beach again. The waves were calm. Rowan sat beside her, awake, staring out at the horizon. "She's gone," he said quietly. Lena nodded, her heart aching. "No, she's everywhere." They stood together as the first dawn rose over Nova Terra. The ocean sparkled with the same golden glow that once filled the Titanic's halls. Birds circled overhead, calling out to the new day. Behind them, hundreds of humans slowly gathered, the ones the beacon had saved, confused, trembling, but alive. Lena turned to them. "She saved you," she said softly. "She saved all of us." A little girl stepped forward. "Who?" Lena said, smiling sadly. "The ship that carried us here, the Titanic." Rowan looked up at the morning sky. "She built a new world and gave it to us." Days passed. The survivors began to rebuild. They learned to grow food, to make tools, to explore this strange, beautiful planet. It was a world not born from destruction, but from memory and mercy. And sometimes, at night, Lena would sit by the sea and listen. When the wind was just right, she could hear a faint melody, the sound of a ship's horn across the stars. One evening, as the twin moons rose, she found something shining in the sand. She brushed it off and gasped. It was a small piece of metal, engraved with 2 words, RMS Titanic. Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed it to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Then, for the first time since the rebirth, she smiled without sadness. Months later, a forest of silver trees grew where the beacon once stood. The trunks bent slightly toward the ocean, as if bowing. When the wind blew through them, they made a soft, singing sound, like the hum of distant engines, and those who listened swore they could hear a voice inside the wind say, "Home." Lena and Rowan stood together on a high cliff, watching the sun rise over Nova Terra. "She's really gone," Rowan said again, more to himself than to her. Lena shook her head. "She's not gone. She became the world." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's what we're meant to do too, to keep building, keep dreaming." The wind picked up. Waves glittered far below, catching the light like 1,000 stars. Lena looked at the horizon. She said softly, "The Titanic didn't sink. It just found her way home."